They fined me $750 for a security disturbance that never happened, then sent 2 fake HOA guards to our door within 72 hours. When one of them slapped my wife across the face, I saw the slip-up that would cost them their charter. Welcome to my channel. I'm Mark DeLuca, retired civil engineer out of Franklin County, North Carolina. These days I spend more time mowing my own lawn than drafting blueprints. I share true stories about homeowners standing up to overreaching boards and winning inside the law. If you're watching this over coffee, drop a quick note. Where are you tuning in from? I like picturing the map light up when I read the comments at night. We moved into Maple Hollow Estates in June 2021, 2 years after my younger brother died in a construction accident. He'd left me his toolbox and one piece of advice: don't let anyone tell you what your house means. So when the HOA started lecturing me about unapproved vegetation because my daughter had planted wild sunflowers near the fence, I kept calm. At first, the president, a man named Greg Mathers, called it a test of compliance. His exact words: either you prune that junk or we prune your privileges. The phrase landed like a blade. Still, I trimmed the flowers, paid the $75 nuisance fee, and tried to forget it. But the pattern kept escalating. Petty fines stacked like receipts after Christmas. By August, I'd logged 7 citations: mailbox height, garbage bin timing, fence paint tone, holiday lights, even the improper closure of our recycling lid. My wife, Jenna, taped every notice to the fridge with a red marker count. When it hit double digits, she joked we could wallpaper the kitchen in threats. The laughter didn't last long. The night of October 4th, 2 men in navy polos labeled HOA security pulled into our driveway at 9:37 p.m. They claimed they'd received a noise complaint. For wubberoos. Hat, the sound of us loading a dishwasher? I opened the door halfway, asked for ID. One flashed a laminated badge that looked home-printed. The other smirked, said, "We can do this the easy way." Jenna stepped forward to film on her phone. The tall one lunged, smacked her hand, and the phone hit the floor with that sick glass crack. She flinched. He struck her cheek once, open-handed. The shock froze me solid for half a breath. Then training kicked in. 12 years in the Navy taught me restraint before retaliation. I reached for the porch light switch, flipped it on, and the camera above the garage blinked red. They noticed. One muttered, "Let's bounce," and they backed off into the dark SUV parked crooked by the curb. The license plate read, Community 1. I memorized it. When the sheriff's deputy arrived 30 minutes later, he found Jenna icing her cheek with a bag of frozen peas. The officer's report was clinical, but he whispered before leaving, "Sir, they're not on any licensed roster I can pull. File everything." I did. Photos, timestamps, body cam audio request, even a duplicate of the doorbell footage onto 2 separate USB drives sealed in sandwich bags. That's the moment something old reignited. The same current that carried me through inspections overseas. Follow procedure, expose the flaw. I wasn't going to brawl in the street. I was going to dismantle them with their own paperwork. The next morning, while Jenna slept, I opened the HOA's bylaws binder. Section 4.3, Security and Access Control, stated any contracted personnel must hold current state license 27B or higher, verified quarterly. Their own clause, black on white. And the signature on that page? Greg Mathers, 2018. At 6:42 a.m., I brewed a mug of burnt diner coffee and started a new folder on my desktop. Maple Hollow Case. Subfolders. Photos. Correspondence. Legal. Public. The plan wasn't revitage, eng. It was reform by exposure. I drafted the first certified letter to the board requesting contractor verification, mailed it with tracking number 9214-8123-7000, 5562-2234-67. While waiting, I replayed the porch footage again and again, each frame a pulse of heat under my ribs. There's a moment, right before the hit, when Jenna's reflection flashes in the storm door glass. She's smiling because she still believes they'll apologize. That second hurts more than the slap itself. I kept my tone professional in every message. Please confirm licensing and insurance per Section 4.3 within 10 business days. I sent copies to the county code office and the HOA's insurance carrier listed on our assessment statements. 10 days passed. No reply. On day 11, instead of a letter, I got a fresh citation. Improper signage, political or protest content. They'd flagged the security camera sticker on my window. That's when I knew the game had begun. The following evening, I walked the neighborhood, counted 12 houses with the same brand of camera decal. Only mine drew a ticket. Selective enforcement, one of the simplest but deadliest errors an HOA can make when facing a disciplined paper trail. Knowledge nugget number 1. Under most state HOA statutes, selective enforcement voids penalties if comparable violations go unpunished. Consistency is mandatory for legitimacy. I emailed my old Navy friend, now an attorney named Dennis Cole, mid-50s, heavy with sarcasm and coffee. He answered in 5 words. Let's see their minutes, Mark. We met at his downtown office the next morning. He poured thermos coffee into chipped mugs and spread my printouts like a battle map. We're not suing yet, he said. We're documenting. You're going to make them talk themselves into a corner. The corner wasn't far away. 3 days later, Greg posted on the community board. Residents are reminded that unauthorized filming of HOA representatives constitutes harassment. He underlined harassment. Dennis laughed so hard he wheezed. He just wrote your Exhibit A. For the next week, I became a quiet observer. Every walk, every car that slowed by our mailbox, every paper posted on our fence, documented, dated, archived. By Friday, the binder was an inch thick. That night, Jenna asked softly, "Are you doing this for me or for him?" Meaning my brother. I didn't answer out loud, just tightened the binder clips until the metal squealed. By Monday morning, the board's arrogance was blistering through their own emails. One of them accidentally CC'd me on an internal thread meant for officers only. I sat in my truck outside the county office when it came through. Subject line, DeLuca situation. They'd attached a draft notice about possible suspension of membership privileges. I smiled. They'd forgotten that HOAs in North Carolina can't suspend voting or common area rights without a due process hearing and a recorded vote. Their own procedural misstep just became my flashlight in a dark room. I printed the thread, timestamp and all, and slipped it into the growing binder. When I got home, Jenna was on the porch, watering the sunflowers that had somehow regrown through the trimmed stalks. "You think we're safe?" she asked. "From them?" I hesitated, watching the droplets scatter like glass beads across the petals. "Not yet," I said, "but we're getting close." That evening, a manila envelope appeared on our welcome mat. No postage, no name. Inside was a photocopy of the HOA's annual contractor roster. Every page blank under the security vendor section. Someone inside had tipped me. I didn't know who, but I recognized the handwriting on a post-it stuck to the first sheet. Check the filings. Fiscal year 2019. I pulled the county records online, searching Maple Hollow Estates HOA vendor disclosures. Nothing past 2018. The registered agent on the last file? G. Mathers, president. No renewals, no insurance proofs. Meaning their so-called guards weren't just unlicensed, they were uninsured, exposing the HOA to full liability for any harm caused under color of authority. I called Dennis. He answered mid-slurp. "They're dead men walking, Mark. But we let them keep walking a bit longer." "How long?" "Until they hang themselves with a new notice." He was right. Within 48 hours, Greg hand-delivered a letter warning me of defamation if I kept spreading rumors about board security. I laughed under my breath and handed it straight to the deputy who'd taken Jenna's report. The officer raised an eyebrow, said, "They doubling down, huh?" I nodded. "And recording it." 2 days later, during the HOA's informal compliance inspection, one of their committee members, a wiry woman named Trish, paced off the front yard with a tape measure like she was defusing a bomb. She wrote, "Grass height exceeds 3 inches" on her clipboard. I filmed the whole thing from the porch. When she left, I pulled the camera footage into my laptop and added it to the folder. It was becoming a living archive, digital and physical redundancy. 2 cloud backups, 1 encrypted flash drive in the gun safe. Early the next morning, I called the county clerk and requested the HOA's Articles of Incorporation and insurance policy on record. The clerk, a woman with a dry cough and a sharp tongue, said, "Funny timing. Their insurer just requested a claim verification letter about an incident on October 4th. I thanked her, hung up, and felt the pulse quicken. The HOA hadn't told their insurer the guards were unlicensed yet. When that truth hit underwriting, they'd lose coverage faster than ink dries on a cancellate. The end letter. That night, Jenna sat beside me on the couch, eyes swollen from lack of sleep. "You think this ever ends?" she whispered. I placed her hand over the binder. "It ends the moment they realize they're not the authority. They're the defendants." The next weekend, I attended the open community improvement meeting at the clubhouse. Greg stood up front, shirt tucked too tight, voice dripping with that smug authority so common in men who've never been challenged. "We must preserve order," he said, gesturing vaguely toward me. "Certain residents believe rules don't apply to them." I raised my hand. "Question: could you confirm for the record the licensing status of the HOA's security vendor?" He smirked. "That information is privileged." Dennis had coached me on that exact response. I slid a printed copy of Section 4.3 onto the table in front of the recorder. "No, it's not. Vendor licensing is public under the state's Open Access Code." The murmuring around the room spread like water in sand. Greg's smirk tightened into something meaner. "You don't understand how HOAs operate, Mr. DeLuca." "Actually," I said, flipping the page, "I do. And you don't understand how liability works when your guards assault a homeowner without insurance coverage." He froze, eyes darting toward the secretary. The meeting minutes would record that pause, those 6 seconds of silence that later became Exhibit B. Outside afterward, a few neighbors approached. One, an older man named Harold, gripped my shoulder. "Been waiting 20 years for someone to stand up to them," he said. "They fined me for planting tomatoes in a visible bed." "Tomatoes?" His laugh cracked like old vinyl. I nodded. "Start sending me your letters. We're building a pattern." That night I opened a shared folder, titled it Neighbor Submissions, and within a day, 6 uploads appeared. Scans of citations, emails, even a voice memo from a woman who'd been told to repaint her house because her shade of beige was too political. Each piece fit the puzzle. Midway through cataloging, I inserted my first knowledge nugget note for my viewers. Knowledge nugget number 2. Most HOAs must keep violation records consistent by property ID, not by homeowner. Tracking discrepancies across homes is one of the fastest ways to prove bias or misuse. By Friday, the pile of evidence resembled a stack of dominoes, one bump from collapsing. Dennis wanted to hold off until we had financials. Follow the money, always. So I did. I requested the annual budget via certified mail. HOAs are legally required to disclose within 30 days. Instead, Greg sent a terse email. "No funds are missing. Further requests will be treated as harassment." That one sentence implied missing funds. I cross-checked the assessment receipts. $200 per homeowner, 142 properties. That's $170,400 a year. The maintenance contractor invoices only totaled $96,000. Where was the other $74,400? I printed every figure, every discrepancy, and taped them across the dining table. Jenna walked in, eyes scanning the paper sea. "It's like you're building a caseboard." "I am," I said, "and we're close to reversal 1. She frowned. "Reversal what?" "You'll see. They won't." The next week, the HOA tried one last intimidation move, an unannounced trash inspection. 2 board members walked up our driveway, photographing bins. I greeted them calmly. "You're trespassing," I said. "You don't have cause." One muttered, "Common area." I opened the deed folder, flipped to page 6. "Lot 47 extends to the curb line. No easement recorded. You're on private property." They retreated, but I caught one phrase as they left. "He's setting us up." Yes, I thought, perfectly. Before turning in, I backed up the latest files and wrote in my notes, "Countdown begins. 14 days until insurer audit." That would be their first taste of the rope tightening. Now, for those watching, have you ever faced an HOA that crossed the line? Tell me what they did and how you pushed back. If you haven't, drop a message for the HOA lurkers who read these comments in silence. They need to hear what real homeowners think. The next morning, I drove to the county office again, a flash drive in my pocket containing every record, every timestamp, every dollar. The receptionist smiled faintly. "You're the guy from Maple Hollow?" "That's me." She slid over a new file. "Thought you'd want this. Greg filed an amendment to renew their insurance 2 days ago. Looks like he backdated the licensing certificate. Forgery, or at least falsification. The smell of victory was toner and risk. I exhaled slowly, realizing the game's midpoint had arrived. They believed they were tightening control. In truth, I'd just set the snare. By the time I got home that evening, rain had started to slide down the porch steps, a thin mist curling around the mailbox like steam. I stood there a while, just listening to the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Inside, Jenna was cooking spaghetti, the smell of garlic butter weaving through the hum of the dishwasher. "Anything new?" she asked. I dropped the folder on the counter. "Greg forged the license renewal. County clerk confirmed. They'll open an inquiry once I file a sworn affidavit." She paused mid-stir. "Does that mean it's over?" "Not yet. It means it's finally real." I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying their smug faces during the last meeting. The arrogance, the belief that a few bylaws and cheap badges could silence people. By 3:00 a.m., I had a full plan mapped out in my notebook. Phase 1, collect. Phase 2, corroborate. Phase 3, expose. The old Navy precision came back like muscle memory. At dawn, I called Dennis. "We're moving to Phase 2. He grunted. "About damn time." That day, we drove to Raleigh to meet a compliance engineer named Claire Benton, Dennis's college friend. She specialized in HOA and property management audits. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, ink-smudged cuffs. She spoke like an accountant who enjoyed seeing math hurt liars. I handed her the forged certificate. She scanned it once, then pointed. The signatures copied from the 2018 file, same pixel pattern, not even a fresh scan. We built a cross-reference timeline on her whiteboard. Dates, renewal cycles, inspection filings, contractor invoices. One column glowed red with gaps. No renewal filings in 2019, 2020, or 2021. Meaning, every security patrol since then was unauthorized. Claire leaned back, tapping her pen. "You want to know how to bury them legally?" I nodded. "Wait until they issue another assessment or fine. Then you challenge its legitimacy based on board misconduct. Under State Code FAR 47F3107, any board action taken in bad faith or fraud is voidable. You'll get judicial review if you need it." Dennis grinned. "That's our bullet." We left with scanned exhibits, timestamps, and Claire's affidavit. I slipped her a thank you card with a Starbucks gift card inside. She waved it off. "Just send me the news article when it blows up." Back in Franklin County, I printed one more copy of the audit page and stored it in the binder under leverage. Confidential. Reversal 1 was nearly baked. Jenna met me at the door, towel in hand. "You're glowing. More like simmering. You going to tell me what this big secret is?" "Not yet," I said. "If you know, you might flinch when they test us again." That test came faster than expected. On Friday, a certified letter arrived. Notice of special assessment. Emergency security fee increase, $450 per household, due in 14 days. Dennis laughed when I forwarded it. They couldn't help themselves. He drafted a one-page response on his letterhead. "Assessment invalid pending verification of contracted security licensure under state statute. Payment withheld under protest. We mailed it certified to the board and copied the county clerk and insurer." Knowledge nugget number 3. Under most HOA charters, emergency assessments require either a board vote recorded in minutes or a member majority vote, never a unilateral letter. Paying under protest keeps you compliant while preserving your right to challenge later. That weekend, I spent hours cataloging photos from neighbors. Cracked sidewalks, unfixed lamps, dead shrubs by the pool. The HOA had been pocketing maintenance funds while crying, "Budget emergency." Late Sunday, Harold called. "They're having a closed meeting Tuesday. Word is they want to vote you out of the association." "They can't," I said. "They think they can." "Good," I replied. "Let them try on record." Tuesday evening, I showed up at the clubhouse with Jenna beside me and Dennis trailing with a briefcase. The room smelled of old carpet and burnt coffee. Greg stood at the front, flanked by Trish and 2 others. "Mr. DeLuca," he said stiffly, "you're here by courtesy, not by right." "Actually," Dennis said, "North Carolina FAR 47F3108 ensures open meetings for members. You're violating the statute just by saying that." The room fell silent. Greg's face reddened, the veins on his forehead showing. "This isn't a court." "Not yet," Dennis replied. They proceeded with their motion. Removal for cause. When the secretary read the clause, she stumbled. The bylaw required a 2/3 member vote. Only 5 board members were present. Not enough. I raised my phone, filming the motion reading. "For the record," I said evenly, "this vote is procedurally void." Greg slammed his palm on the table. "You're poisoning this community." Jenna flinched. I didn't blink. "No, Greg, I'm sipu leaning it. We left as murmurs filled the room. Outside, under the dim lot lights, Dennis exhaled. That's all we needed. They just violated open meeting laws and misapplied removal protocol. Paper gold. We drove home in silence, except for the rhythmic beat of rain against the windshield. Jenna reached across the console, squeezed my hand. "I want to believe this ends well." "It will," I said, watching the wipers slice the dark. "They just wrote the ending for me." Before bed, I organized every file by exhibit number, labeling the binder spine. Exhibit set 124. I snapped a photo of the cover, the words embossed by lamplight, and saved it in 3 locations. That photo later became thumbnail-worthy, visual beat number 1, the moment the plan hardened into evidence. For the viewers, policy or property, where should control end? Should a neighborhood board dictate your lawn, your paint, your family schedule? Tell me your line. I read every comment, and I promise your thoughts shape the next fight. The following week, retaliation began. Flyers taped to stop signs calling me a bully. Anonymous posts on the community board suggesting my anger issues. Even a random wellness check from county social services. Each one documented. Each one time-stamped. Jenna broke down one night, tears catching in her hair. "I just want them gone." "So do I whispered. "But they'll leave on paper, not in cuffs. That's the only way it sticks." By the next morning, I knew we were entering the storm's center. The storm came fast, 2 weeks of letters, whispers, and headlights pausing outside our window at 2 a.m. I stopped reacting. Every note went into the binder. Every night I checked the porch light camera angle, like clockwork. By the 3rd week, the neighborhood Facebook group turned into an unofficial tribunal, people arguing about whether I was destroying community harmony or finally holding them accountable. It was strange hearing your own name used as a weather forecast. Some feared me, others hoped I'd clear the sky. Dennis called one morning, voice sharp with caffeine. "We have to accelerate, Mark. Their insurer's audit hits in 4 days. If we're going to swing reversal 1, it needs to happen before they fabricate a renewal record." "I'm ready." He told me to meet at the county records office again. Claire was already there, spread across a table with 3 legal pads and her thermos. "I pulled something interesting," she said. "Greg listed the HOA's insurance renewal under a dormant LLC, Maple Hollow Services LLC, registered in Delaware. You know who the agent of record is?" She flipped the paper. "Greg Mathers." Dennis whistled. "That's self-dealing, conflict of interest, maybe fraud depending on how funds were transferred." Claire handed me a highlighter. "I'd mark every transaction over $5,000. They all route to that shell company." We highlighted 14 entries, totaling $62,900, almost the missing balance from earlier. The theft was practically confessing itself. That night, I printed the transfer logs, hole-punched them, and slid them into the binder. The weight of it felt different now, less like paper, more like inevitability. Jenna found me at the table, tracing lines across spreadsheets. "You're sure this can't backfire?" "It's not revenge," I said quietly. "It's repair. They broke trust. I'm building the fix." She nodded, poured me more coffee, and left the lamp on low. Her trust steadied me more than caffeine ever could. 2 days before the audit, Greg sent another notice. Failure to comply with safety standards, pending lien. They claimed my porch railing was non-conforming. I smiled. They just issued a physical inspection without authorization. I downloaded the county's building permit database and confirmed. No inspector. Visits logged, no permits issued for safety review. Knowledge nugget number 4. Any HOA inspection beyond common areas typically requires written homeowner consent or county oversight. Unauthorized entry constitutes trespass, even if inspection is cited. The following morning, I filed a trespass report with the sheriff's office, attaching time-stamped photos from my security cam showing 2 board members on the porch with clipboards. The deputy, same one from October, chuckled. "You again, Mr. DeLuca?" Still me. You documenting like before? Every breath. He nodded approvingly. Keep it clean. We'll file this under harassment pattern. That phrase, harassment pattern, felt like a weight lifting. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was recognized. That evening, I received a text from Harold. Emergency meeting tomorrow night. Topic unknown. Closed session. Perfect. I had exactly what I needed. Before the meeting, I went to the county recorder's office and purchased something very specific. The assignment rights to the HOA's parcel, Nadaram H001, a small 0.12-acre strip listed as Security Access Easement. Cost me $1, laterally transferred from the previous contractor who had never been paid for his renewal permit. It was buried in their delinquent filings. That strip happened to include the driveway entrance to the clubhouse. I smiled when the clerk stamped it. Recorded 3:42 p.m. File number 223147A. Reversal number 1 was officially in my pocket. That night, Jenna watched me tuck the deed into a clear sleeve. "You're scaring me a little," she said softly. "I'm not breaking the law, honey. I'm enforcing it." The next evening, we walked into the HOA meeting together. The board had set up a projector and a neat line of folding chairs. Greg looked smug again. "Tonight," he announced, "we'll discuss security policy and potential disciplinary measures against Mr. DeLuca." Dennis leaned toward me. "Showtime." Greg gestured at me. "You've undermined the association, harassed volunteers, and spread false information. Do you deny it?" "I do." He crossed his arms. "Then leave the property. This meeting's on HOA grounds." I pulled the clear sleeve from my folder, slid it across the table. "Correction, Greg. As of 3:42 p.m. today, this driveway and 48 feet of frontage are no longer HOA property. I own the easement through recorded assignment. You're technically meeting on my land." Gasps rippled through the room. Greg blinked, speechless. Dennis laid a copy of the deed beside it. "Filed and certified. Your client's welcome to verify with the county." Greg stammered. That's impossible." "No," I said, calm as ever. "It's public record. Section 7.4 of your own charter allows easement reassignment for unpaid contractor debt. You ignored a 2019 renewal invoice. I simply bought it." The sheriff's deputy from earlier happened to be stationed nearby for the meeting, protocol after my harassment report. He stepped forward, looked at the papers, and nodded. "All checks out, gentlemen. Proceed civilly." The room dissolved into chaos. Board members whispering, neighbors standing, cameras flashing. Greg's face drained of color. "You can't hold meetings here anymore," I told him evenly. "Until you reimburse that debt and restore proper licensing, this property is off limits." Dennis leaned in. "Game over, Mr. Mathers." Outside afterward, Harold clapped me on the back, laughing through tears. "Never seen anyone beat them at their own rules." "It's not over yet," I said. "We still have the insurer audit tomorrow." As we walked to the car, Jenna slid her arm through mine. "So that was the secret? That was reversal 1. For everyone watching, fines or fairness. When HOAs charge $250, $500, or even $1,000 for paper infractions, is that justice or a revenue scheme? Where's your limit? Comment. Your threshold, or at least like the video, if you've ever been hit with one of those absurd fines. That night I lay awake, listening to crickets beyond the window. The binder sat on the desk, open to the stamped deed. For the first time in months, the house felt safe again. Not because the fight was done, but because the truth had taken physical form, sealed in ink and law. Tomorrow, the dominoes would start falling. The next morning, I ironed a clean shirt, not because I cared about appearances, but because I wanted Greg to see the steadiness in every wrinkle I'd pressed out. The insurer's audit was scheduled for 9:00 a.m. sharp at the clubhouse, the one now sitting squarely on my newly acquired easement. Dennis met me there, briefcase in one hand, thermos in the other. He took one look at the no trespassing sign I'd staked by the curb and grinned. Simple, legal, devastating. By 8:45, Greg pulled up in his silver Lexus, stepping out with a man in a gray suit, the insurance field investigator. Greg's smile was stretched too tight. "This is unnecessary," he muttered. The investigator shook my hand first. "Mr. DeLuca, appreciate your cooperation. We're just here to confirm coverage and licensing documentation." No problem, I said, opening the binder. Everything you'll need is in here. Exhibit references on the tabs. Greg's face went chalk white when the investigator reached Exhibit E, the forged certificate. We received this from your office, the man said flatly. Do you have an updated version? Greg stuttered. That's a draft. Dennis leaned forward. Stamped and dated by your own email server metadata. Draft or not, it's false filing. The investigator scribbled notes, murmured, We'll escalate this to underwriting and legal review. By noon, word had spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Someone had recorded the entire exchange and posted it on the local Facebook group. The caption read, Turns out our HOA's security guards were fakey. After all. Within hours, comment threads exploded. Neighbors tagging county officials, sharing their own grievances. The retaliation came swiftly. That evening, our mailbox was pried open, and one of the letters inside had traitor scrawled across it in red marker. Jenna found it first. She stood at the curb, trembling, holding the envelope like a live wire. They're trying to scare us, she whispered. I took the letter gently, slid it into a plastic sleeve and said, Good. It means they're panicking. Still, that night was rough. Every sound, branches tapping the siding, wind pushing the screen door, felt amplified. At 11:23 p.m., a car idled outside for nearly 5 minutes. I jotted the plate down and logged it. My daughter's room light glowed faintly down the hall. I sat outside her door until she fell asleep. That was the only moment the fight ever felt like fear. The next morning, I filed another report. The same deputy arrived, this time with a clipboard thicker than mine. We're opening a harassment file, cumulative, he said, and I'll have an extra patrol run through here for a week or two. It was a small gesture, but it steadied Jenna's breathing for the first time in days. Then, late Thursday, an anonymous envelope arrived in our mailbox. Inside were photocopied pages from the HOA's private board chat logs. They showed Greg instructing others to pressure the DeLucas until they sell. He called me unstable and a risk to community property values. I handed the copies straight to Dennis. He barely contained a grin. This is retaliation in writing. They've just converted your civil case into potential criminal intimidation. That evening I called Harold. Gather everyone who's been harassed. We're filing collectively. He chuckled, voice rough. Been waiting to hear those words for 20 years. By Saturday morning, 9 households met on my driveway, coffee cups steaming in the cool air. Some brought their kids, some brought folders thicker than mine. Trish, the former compliance enforcer, even showed up quietly, eyes down. They forced me to write those citations, she said. They threatened to replace me if I didn't. Dennis took statements one by one. This is how reform begins, he murmured. The next day, a small local news reporter named Rachel swung by, camera slung over her shoulder. You're the Navy guy taking on the HOA, right? She asked. Just trying to live in peace, I replied. She laughed. That line plays well on camera. The segment aired Sunday night. Neighborhood uprising. Residents challenge HOA authority. The thumbnail showed my binder snapping shut, labeled tabs glowing under the porch light. Visual beat number 2 captured by accident. And if you're watching this now, tell me, how far should an HOA control your life? Should they dictate porch colors, fence heights, or what flowers your kid plants? Where's the line for you? Drop it in the comments. These are the stories they need to read. That week felt like walking through wet cement. Slow, heavy, but leaving permanent footprints. Greg retaliated with another threat of lien, this time pending community vote. But I already had my next move brewing. I asked Dennis, if the insurer pulls their coverage, what happens? They lose indemnity. Every officer becomes personally liable for board actions. They'll scatter. Good, I said. Let them run. By Friday afternoon, the insurer sent an official notice of suspension. Coverage withdrawn pending fraud review. I printed 10 copies and taped one to the clubhouse door. Greg called that night, voice low, almost pleading. Mark, you've made your point. Let's talk man to man. It's too late for talk, I said, but not too late for reform. The silence that followed was long enough to hear my own pulse. Then he hung up. That was the moment I knew reversal number 2 wasn't going to come from court. It would come from negotiation, leverage traded for structural change. But we weren't there yet. The dominoes had only begun to tip. The audit fallout hit like a thunderclap. By Monday morning, every mailbox in Maple Hollow had a notice from the insurer. Policy under review. All claim submissions suspended pending investigation. Greg's empire was unraveling, one printed letter at a time. At dawn, I stood on the curb with my coffee, watching neighbors unfold the same notice with puzzled frowns. Harold jogged over, flannel jacket half-zipped. They lost coverage? Suspended, I corrected. But yes, basically naked now. He grinned, that kind of quiet, satisfied grin you see on veterans when a long fight finally tilts. Never thought I'd see the day. Jenna came out, handed me another envelope. You might want to open this one. Inside was a handwritten note. You've made enemies, Mark. Careful who you trust. No signature, no return address. I slipped it into the binder without comment. Fear, I'd learned, was the currency of weak men. Documentation was mine. That afternoon, Dennis called. Time to stage the public set piece. When? Tomorrow night, HOA's emergency assembly. I've already notified the county ombudsman. He's sending a representative to observe. Make it clean, make it final. For the rest of the day, I prepared like a soldier polishing a rifle. Every exhibit labeled, binder tabs color-coded, duplicates in the cloud. The smell of toner filled the kitchen as the printer chugged out the last few affidavits. That night, Jenna found me by the window. After this, she said, you'll finally sleep? Maybe, I replied. Depends on how loud they scream. The next evening, the clubhouse parking lot overflowed. Cars lined the street all the way to the stop sign. Someone had set up folding chairs on the lawn. The air was thick with humidity and anger. Greg stood at the podium, trying to project calm authority, but his voice cracked around the edges. There's a lot of misinformation circulating about board finances. Tonight, we'll clear that up. I waited until he flipped the first slide, budget allocations, then stood from the second row, binder in hand. Mr. Mathers, I said evenly, before you proceed, could you confirm for the record whether Maple Hollow Services LLC is owned by you? His eyes narrowed. That's irrelevant. Then I'll make it relevant. I opened the binder, slid out the printed ledger, and walked to the front. Here are 14 transfers totaling $60,900 from HOA funds to that company, your company. That's embezzlement under state statute. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Greg stammered. Those were service reimbursements. For a vendor that doesn't exist, I interrupted. Registered agent, same name as yours, inactive since 2019. And those fake security guards? You paid them through this shell. The room erupted. Neighbors shouted. Chairs scraped, phones flashed. The county ombudsman, a silver-haired man in a navy blazer, stepped forward. Mr. Mathers, I've reviewed the documents Mr. DeLuca submitted earlier today. They appear legitimate. I'll be initiating an administrative review effective immediately. Greg's composure shattered. You can't, this is private property. Not anymore, I said. You lost that easement, remember? The deputy, same one who'd filed my earlier reports, stood by the door, arms crossed. Sir, I suggest you calm down. You're still under investigation for harassment. For a moment, Greg's face went blank, as if the realization finally caught him. The rules he'd bent for years had turned to steel around his own wrists. Dennis leaned toward me. You've got them, Mark. They're finished. But I wasn't smiling. Victory wasn't the goal. Correction was. I looked around the room. Older residents teary-eyed, younger ones angry, tired parents clutching their kids. They'd all been living under this shadow, paying into a system that mocked them. Greg tried one last bluff. You think this changes anything? We'll just elect new officers. Not under the current bylaws, I said. You can't hold an election until the board's cleared of financial misconduct, and by then we'll have new oversight terms drafted. The ombudsman nodded. That's correct. Until then, all HOA functions are suspended pending audit. It was over. Just like that, 2 sentences from a neutral authority, and the empire collapsed. Outside, under the street lamp drizzle, neighbors gathered around me, thanking, hugging, offering casseroles like it was a funeral for tyranny. I smiled, but exhaustion pressed behind my eyes. That night I sat on the porch with Jenna. The cicadas were loud, the air thick and damp. She leaned her head against my shoulder. So now what? Now we rebuild, I said. For everyone listening, when an HOA crosses the line, how should justice be served? Should members face removal, fines, or criminal charges? What precedent feels right to you? Share your take in the comments. It's not theory anymore. It's what shapes the next reform. I stayed awake until dawn, binder on my lap, the porch light humming above. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about how to trade this leverage for lasting change. The reform deal would be my reversal too, the one that healed what they broke. By sunrise the next day, Greg's Lexus was gone from his driveway, and an unmarked sedan with county plates sat in its place. The ombudsman's team had moved fast, faster than I expected. Within 24 hours, they'd frozen the HOA's accounts and summoned the board for an interim hearing. When I pulled out of my driveway, the neighborhood felt different. Quiet, lighter somehow, though the air still carried that faint metallic scent of rain on asphalt. Jenna leaned out from the porch. "Don't let them bait you," she said. "Just finish it clean." At the hearing, the room was smaller. No podiums this time, just a folding table, 6 chairs, and a single microphone humming under fluorescent light. The county ombudsman, Mr. Delaney, cleared his throat. "This proceeding is to determine temporary management of Maple Hollow Estates pending audit." Greg looked hollowed out, gray suit wrinkled, a man out of arguments. "This vendetta has gone far enough," he said. "He's turning neighbors against each other." Delaney adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Mathers, the records show over $60,000 unaccounted for, unlicensed contractors, and multiple confirmed harassment reports. If you have evidence otherwise, now's your moment." Greg's lawyer whispered something in his ear. He didn't speak again. Delaney turned to me. "Mr. DeLuca, your documentation is unusually thorough. Would you be willing to serve on an interim reform committee?" I hesitated. "Only if it's transparent. Open voting, term limits, external audits. Otherwise it's just repainting rot." Delaney smiled faintly. "Noted. The county will appoint a temporary administrator until elections can be held under revised bylaws." It was done. The board was dissolved on the spot. Dennis leaned over, whispering, "That's the cleanest kill I've ever seen." When I got home, Harold was waiting with 2 coffees. "News travels fast," he said, handing me one. Half the neighborhood's cheering, the other half's wondering who runs the pool now. I laughed for the first time in weeks. "We'll figure it out." That night my daughter came out in her pajamas and climbed into my lap on the porch. "Mom says you fixed the keys." "Neighborhood." "Not fixed," I said. "Just cleaned the gears." She nodded sleepily. "Can we plant sunflowers again?" "Yeah," I said. "Tomorrow." A few days later, Rachel, the reporter, returned with a cameraman. "Just wanted a follow-up," she said. "People love a good ending." I shook my head. Endings are easy. Keeping things honest afterward, that's the work. The broadcast aired that weekend, and for the first time the story wasn't about me. It was about the neighbors rebuilding, volunteers repainting the mailbox posts, kids riding bikes without glancing at clipboards. For the watchers here, developer ties, council conflicts, HOA cross deals. What should the penalty be for that kind of betrayal? Suspension? Prison? I want to know what accountability looks like to you. Still, there was one more step, the reform deal itself. Delaney emailed me a draft of the new charter. Open records access, rotating leadership, and a mandatory ethics audit every 2 years. But I saw the missing piece, the financial transparency clause. Without it, history could repeat itself. I wrote back, add section 9.2, all budgets and expenditures must be posted publicly within 30 days of disbursement. He replied 5 minutes later, done. You really don't miss a detail, do you? By the following week, the reforms were approved by 89% of the homeowners. Greg resigned formally, citing health reasons. The insurance carrier issued a statement noting corrective compliance achieved. Trish was rehired, not as compliance officer, but as community liaison. That evening, under the fading sunset, I walked the easement I'd bought. The old access strip now legally mine. I set down a metal post and screwed in a new sign, Community Access Path, Public Easement Restored. The last hammer strike echoed like punctuation. For the first time, the neighborhood lights glowed warm instead of watchful. 2 weeks later, the headlines read, HOA Corruption Exposed. Community Takes Control. It felt surreal seeing our little neighborhood mentioned beside phrases like state ethics oversight and reform precedent. The reporter had used a photo of me planting sunflowers with my daughter. Ironic, really, since that's how the whole mess started. The investigation finalized quietly. Greg accepted a plea for falsifying financial documents, 3 years probation, restitution of $62,900, and a permanent ban from serving on any board. The 2 men who'd posed as security guards were charged with misdemeanor assault and impersonation. They both pled out, paid fines, and vanished. I received the official audit summary a few days later. It listed new measures under the reform deal: term limits, public audits, capped fines, and an independent ethics committee. The last clause read, all HOA meetings to be recorded and archived for public review. Transparency was no longer a request. It was law. Jenna stood beside me as I read the last page. So, it's over? Yeah, I said softly. It's over. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhale, like the end of a long dive where you finally break the surface. That weekend, neighbors gathered for a cleanup day. We repainted the playground fence, trimmed overgrown hedges, and patched the walking path. Harold grilled burgers while Trish coordinated volunteers with a clipboard, still organized, but smiling now. Claire and Dennis showed up too, joking that they'd come to audit the lemonade stand. The sound of laughter carried across the lawns, and for the first time, the HOA letters in my mailbox were about potlucks and newsletters instead of fines and threats. A few days later, the Ombudsman's office called. Mr. DeLuca, would you be willing to consult with other neighborhoods starting reform charters? I laughed. As long as it pulls. It's volunteer work. He chuckled. That's how it starts. That night, under the porch light, I opened the binder one last time. Every page, every citation, photo, and affidavit was a record of endurance. I removed the first sheet, the one labeled October 4th incident, and slipped it into a new folder marked Resolved. The metal latch clicked shut. For the viewers still with me, if you believe I fought the right way and that this is how justice should look, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so future stories reach you first. And as a responsible neighbor, share this one so others learn how to stand without breaking the law. That part's on us. The next morning, my daughter tugged my hand toward the fence line. They're blooming, she said. The sunflowers had returned, tall and unbent, facing the dawn. I knelt beside her, running my hand through the dirt, feeling the grit under my nails. That's how you know the soil's good again, I whispered. Later that week, the county website posted a short blurb. Maple Hollow Estates achieves compliance and launches community transparency program. The HOA had been renamed Maple Hollow Cooperative Association. The word cooperative mattered. It meant something new had taken root. In the months that followed, small victories piled up. Streetlights fixed, fees reduced, new bylaws approved unanimously. The first Community Access Day opened the clubhouse to everyone, not just board members. There were kids' games on the lawn, seniors teaching garden tips, and a table where residents could review the HOA's finances with cookies and coffee. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Jenna squeezed my hand. You did it, she said. No, I told her. We did. Everyone did. When the local paper called again asking for a closing quote, I gave them this. Accountability isn't revenge, it's repair. When a community fix, as its own reflection, everyone sees clearer. The story ended there for the world, but in our little corner of Franklin County, it became the beginning of something steadier. That night, as crickets hummed and the porch light flickered on, I closed my laptop and whispered to no one in particular. Next case will come soon enough. And somewhere in the binder drawer, a fresh label waited, empty but ready.